And now for what we've all come to see, how to actually read papers and take notes in Zotero, right? So let's go ahead and get started with that with a paper that I haven't read yet. I did just open it to make sure that I've got it, but we're going to go ahead and look at it together. Don't worry, we won't be reading the whole paper. So this paper is very old. It was published in 1975, and I've chosen it just as an example of you don't need a fancy schmancy super well formatted PDF to do this. You can do it on basically anything you can load into Zotero. So here's the PDF. You just double click on it, and this isn't in Adobe Acrobat or anything. It opens directly into Zotero. And this is a paper about the mini mental state exam, which is a test of or a screening tool for cognitive function in aged populations. So again, we're not going to read this whole thing, but let's pretend that we're reading along and we find some interesting things, shall we? So we read along. You can control and scroll out just, for zooming, just as you would with anything else. And let's say that I think that it's very interesting the way that they're talking about with an affective disorder with cognitive impairment, also called pseudo-dementia. So I want to highlight that because I want to be able to spot that again. So I'm going to choose my highlighter up here at the top, and then I'm going to just highlight the text that's interesting to me. Oops. Affective disorder with cognitive impairment. Come on. So there we go. It is highlighted. Hooray, we've done it. So let's see here. Let's find a figure. Oh man, here's that same affective disorder / depressed. I want to make sure that I can see that that is in this chart. So, in case you didn't see what I did, I selected this little box section up here, and that way you can just start highlighting things on pages anywhere you want. And if you accidentally make a mistake, you just delete it. If you, let's delete all the extra ones I made, but this one wasn't an accident. I want this. And I want to be able to say why I highlighted it. So this is interesting to me because it's cool. And check this out, add tags. I can even tag my notes within documents. So this could be dementia. And now that's tagged as well. So I can search that tag as well. So, so we've talked about quote unquote circling things or squaring things in this case and highlighting things. But sometimes you're reading something and you say, to be sure that these scores were not due to age effects and unrelated to clinical conditions, an age match group was drawn from sample A. And I'm not reading this paper as we go along, so I don't know what's interesting about that. But let's say I think that that is absolutely absurd, and I want to make a note of that so that I remember that's absurd. So I kind of go for the little post-it note up here at the top, and then I click nearby, and I say, this is absurd. I would never think such a thing. The authors should have used sample B. I have no idea, obviously. And then and since I think they did a bad job, I will put methods as a tag. And so now as I'm reading along, next time I open this, I can be like, oh, I thought this was absurd. And it's very easy to see my comments there. Ta-da! And these have all been yellow, as you can see, but you can also change the colors. So green, come on, I have to actually select my highlighter after selecting my color. But there's a green highlight. And since that one was about personality disorder with drug abuse, where's my personality disorder with drug abuse? Who knows? But let's say that it was right here, so I could highlight that right there, things of that nature. So one thing that I tend to do with these multicolored highlightings is kind of try to get into a habit of color coding your highlighting. So one thing that you might choose to do if you're in a field such as mine is always highlight the hypothesis in a certain color, or the objective / hypothesis. Most will state at least one, if not both. So it's very easy to pick out the hypothesis because it will be the only thing that you've highlighted in red or something like that. Or, only highlight things that are directly interested in enzyme A in blue in every paper, things of that nature. But making sure that you have like these generic color coding as, methods is going to be yellow, the hypothesis is going to be green, the main findings is going to be blue. Did I already say blue? I'm bad at colors. Purple, things of that nature, so that you can end up being able to really quickly find whatever you need every time you open a paper. So that's how you can annotate papers within like the PDF itself. But sometimes making this little "this is absurd" comments here is not enough. Your paper, you don't just have to say "this is absurd" about clinical tests of the sensorium. That is a fun word. You want to actually take notes about the whole paper, right? So one thing you can do, so while you have the paper open, so you've got the paper open, up here on the top right, there is some options. So if you hit the one on the on the right, but the leftmost button, you'll see this very familiar side pane. So you can see the tags and things just like we could back in the main window. You can add tags as you go. So I highly recommend doing that. As you may recall, I tag things based on things like, so this is quite literally about cognitive assessment, and cognitive function. So we can add those here, and it's about dementia. So we can add that here. So you can just, as you're reading along and you see, oh, that's something that this paper is about, let me add a tag. So you can do that while you're doing it and not just when you add it or after you finish. And then we'll talk about related in just a minute, but I just wanted to point out that these are there. But here's the really fun thing. So then you can do the one that actually looks like a notepad here. And this is showing me all my notes from other pages, but you'll see no notes for this item. So you just hit the little plus, add item note, and this opens this whole note thing that you can add. So this is about this. So this overview is about the creation of the mini mental state exam cognitive function screening tool. I haven't read the paper yet, so I can't really give better descriptions than that. But even within these notes, you can change fonts and bold. You can put in all sorts of numbered lists. You can highlight stuff within your notes. You can link to things, insert citations within these, things of that nature. You can also tag your notes here. So you can tag basically anything in Zotero, which is wonderful. I'm going to delete this because, again, I haven't actually read this yet, so none of these annotations are actually legitimate. But the one other thing I wanted to do while I'm here is talk about the related tab. So related, I hit that and you can see it says 0 related. So let's say that I found this paper incredibly important to another paper that I read. So I can hit add and then it'll bring up my Zotero library. And let's say that this is very linked to symptoms of dementia. So I can click that and say okay. And now I can see, when I'm reading this paper, I can see, there's a related paper, and it will take me directly to that paper as well. And I find this very useful. For example, if I'm reading a review, I will link all of the papers that it's actually like citing, like that it's essentially reviewing, as a related item, so I can easily go and read each one of those if I wish. Additionally, if I'm reading a paper and there's a very good citation in it that I'm like, wow, based on what this author said about that author's work, I should definitely be reading that paper too. So I'll go and add that paper to Zotero, but I don't want it to get lost in all of the mess of my Zotero library, so I'll also add it as a related item. So I remember, that was the paper that I was supposed to read because it was related to that paper. So that's a really useful tool for the related items thing. So I didn't really get to talk too much about the actual notes taking there because I hadn't read the paper yet. So let's look at one that I actually have read. Let's see here, which is very easy to do with our tagging system because I can do have read. And then let's do journal clubs. Now let's do dissertation instead. So we're looking for one with notes. All right, so this is that same enzyme one that I think I've already mentioned this enzyme in a previous video. So this particular paper, you'll be able to see that I have actually, yes, so I have read it. I didn't have a whole lot of highlighting to do in this one, but I did read it. I swear, see, so there wasn't a whole lot that I wanted to highlight about this, but I highlighted the one thing that I really thought was the most important. So they found these cytokines enhanced this particular enzyme activity and expression, and the effects are additive. So I highlighted what was really important to me, but of course, if I'm going back and trying to read this as part of my dissertation work or something, I don't want to open up every single PDF to see what was this paper, what did I get out of this paper, and so that's where the notes come in. So this one is one that I actually did write notes about. So these notes, I tend to do notes to myself. So I summarized whatever the paper was about pretty briefly. Researchers were trying to elucidate what it regulates the expression of the enzyme. So they used cow kidney epithelial cells, question marks, it was the 90s, I guess, to subject the culture to insult, mostly inflammatory cytokines, and see what changed expression of the enzyme. They all increased this expression, they have an additive effect. And then this is a note for myself, maybe this explains hyperuricemia and obesity. So I summarized what they were doing, what they found, and my thoughts about it that I might end up writing about someday. So that's what my notes tend to look like. But again, you can make your notes look like anything that's going to be useful to you. So this one is another old paper. I kind of started reading papers like oldest to newest. So serum urate went down along with weight loss, urinary uric acid, no significant change, creatinine and UA creatinine ratio, no significant change. So very, very basic notes on that one. Let's see here. Oh, I probably shouldn't look too closely at that one, but not a great review. So apparently that one wasn't very useful to me. This one has a lot more highlighting. You can see my color-coded highlighting there. And then the notes I took are, again, a description of what they were doing, how they did it, and what they found. So this is how I use Zotero to take notes, and it's a way that you could possibly look into taking your own notes in Zotero.